the hashtag Spacedoutradio. I will get to your questions and comments in there as well. If you head to our website for $5 a month, you can become an SOR space traveler. You could also pick up a Spaced Out Radio shirt, posters, stickers in our store. Read the Encounter online. We got some great breaking news in there from Everett Themer. Check out my blog as well as Eric Markham's in there as well. You can also fill out an SOR Sightlines report if you've had an experience you cannot explain. We got great video footage too from Tim Doyle's UFO Seekers and Contact TV's Leslie Mitchell Clark. It's the final Monday of the month, and we're only one day away from Halloween here on the West Coast, which means it's time to get spooky with Butch Witkowski from UFO Cop. Butch is an old-school investigator looking for the new and unexplained. Former police officer, Butch takes his cryptid and alien investigations very seriously. Him and his team are continuously working, trying to find answers for everyday people who are having extraordinary experiences. Whether it's Mothman sightings in Chicago, or bipedal canines in Pennsylvania, Butch and his team continue to track and catalog every report that comes their way. There are no answers, just more questions at times, but it's one of those situations that if you don't look, you're likely not going to find what's going on. Butch Witkowski, always good to have you on the air with us, my friend. How are you?
I'm fine, sir. Getting over a cold, but I'm fine. Glad to be back on.
I'm glad to have you back on as well. And I do want to remind our listeners that right after this program tonight, we're going to shut things down after the 3 hours, and I am going to be hopping on the air with Ryan Recker at KMOX, and you can go to KMOX.com, that's CBS affiliate out of St. Louis, to talk a little aliens and conspiracy. So I hope you join me right there after the show. It'll be about 12:06 Pacific, 3:06 Eastern time. So hopefully you can stay up and check that out as well. You know, I kind of never had that happen, man. Just right out of the blue, talking on Twitter, and guys like, yeah, come on the show. Let's talk about this. So I think it's going to be fun.
Those impromptu things are always fun. It's happened to me many times where somebody calls up and say, hey, guest canceled. Can you be on in the next 20 minutes? Yeah, I guess.
It's more natural because there's less thinking, less buildup. You know what I'm saying? So We'll talk some cryptids. We'll talk about, whatever he wants to talk about. I'm pretty game with that. But it's amazing where a conversation on Twitter about hockey will actually be leading to cryptids and UFOs and aliens and all that kind of talk later on tonight. I'm pretty excited for it. But nonetheless, we got a show to do here. And Butch, what's new in the land of UFO Cop?
Oh, my God. I don't know where to even start. Well, I guess we could start out with, I'm sure pretty much everybody's seen the picture now of the airliner that got struck going into Chicago with a sports team on it. And the damage caused by, well, right now they don't know what it is. At first they said it was a bird strike, but it's awful strange looking for a bird strike. First of all, the size of it and how it collapsed the nose of that craft. And I believe it was one of the basketball players from the team who commented that he said they either struck Superman or a UFO. And it's still being investigated, which is kind of funny because when you look at the photograph and you look at photographs of other bird strikes, some of those planes have a fiberglass nose, and all the nose does is protect the radar equipment. And some are plastic, and when they get a bird strike, they get smashed up pretty good, or the bird will get impaled in it. They'll hit wings, of course, engines and such. But this one, to push that nose in as far as it did, and that's an aluminum nose, that's not plastic, as far as it did and the size of the impact. And there are birds that do fly at 30,000 feet, but not many, less than a handful, as a matter of fact. And to cause that kind of damage, and there's no blood, no feathers, no guts, no nothing to show that it was a bird strike, it's kind of bizarre. And it's being questioned by a lot of folks.
I read that story, Butch, and what surprised me was a couple of players, including Carmelo Anthony, who is one of the NBA's former All-Stars, were saying that it happened at 30,000 feet, Yet they're saying, Delta Airlines, that as they were going into Chicago and going in for a landing at Midway, that's where their plane hit this bird. And it really doesn't make sense, considering we have players going on social media saying that their 757 was hit at 30,000 feet, because the players would feel something like that, I'm assuming.
Uh-huh. Oh, yeah. That and the fact that bird strikes at night are extremely rare. Extremely rare. Matter of fact, bird strikes for the whole fleet of aircraft throughout the world only amounts to 8% of a nose strike. Most are wing strikes, engine strikes, or windshield strikes. And the worst ones that take the brunt, that really do serious damage, are helicopters. When they get hit, they take out everything, because there is no nose, really. It's almost all glass. And this thing is just weird. And then to have it happen over Chicago, where you have all these reports of this flying humanoid phantom, it's just a little bizarre, but it is interesting.
Well, and that's what I'm thinking. If it happened at 30,000 feet in the middle of the night, what birds are flying? I mean, it could be a vulture. It could be a condor. I don't know if there's condors in the Midwest. Eagles have been known to go up that high, in the daytime when they catch a jet stream. Hawks, I believe, as well. But, 30,000 feet, Butch. And that's the number that I cannot get out of my head when they are saying that. This is this is a little trippy to me.
Yeah, it's kind of bizarre. Like you said, now condors have been seen on the East Coast, and but they're explained where the condor gets caught up in the jet stream, and it just rides the jet stream all the way through. But for a bird strike at night, that's very rare, first of all, and for the size of the dent in that aircraft, that bird had to be huge. Huge. It certainly was nobody's parakeet. But
I'm reading the tweet right now from Oklahoma City Thunder player Josh Eustace. Uh-huh. And it was at 11:09 p.m., a picture of the nose of the plane, and he says, I guess we hit something 30,000 feet up. So that really doesn't jive with the official story that they hit a bird coming in for a landing.
No. Well, no. And I there's very few people that even believe it was a bird, because, first of all, I don't care what picture you pull up on the internet or Google, just Google bird strikes, aircraft bird strikes, and those birds are usually splattered all over the aircraft, feathers, blood, guts, the whole 9 yards. There's not a mark on that plane. It was an impact, and whatever hit it dropped off or went up over the top or whatever, but it's just bizarre, the amount of damage from a bird strike. Like I said, it's interesting, and I saw what the FAA said, but I do not believe that was a bird.
Well, I want to read some tweets on this, because this is an Instagram post from the players, because I think this is important. And I'm not saying that it was anything contrived. It could have been a piece of space debris falling to Earth. It might have been a UFO. We just don't know. But this is some of the players' reactions from the internet. And Butch, after you hear these, I'm curious to get your opinion of this. Russell Westbrook said, you never take anything for granted. Just be thankful and blessed that we were able to land the plane and everything was okay. Seeing stuff like this shows you how you need to cherish life and understand the important things in life and embrace every moment. Carmelo Anthony says on his Instagram, what possibly could we have hit in the sky at this time of night? Player Steve Adams tweeted out, we had a rough flight to say the least. 30,000 feet in the air flying to Chicago. What caused this? So that's now two different players that say 30,000 feet had happened. Okay. Other reaction was from Nick Collison. Must have been a pretty big bird, a pterodactyl maybe. Collison was watching the show Stranger Things when he felt the plane drop for a second like a roller coaster. And Westbrook said it was one of those moments you bow your head and thank the man above. So one other player, Patrick Patterson, says the Oklahoma City Thunder team must have hit Superman to cause that. So we have two players confirming it was at 30,000 feet, a third player saying that the plane dropped after this collision. Even Coach Billy Donovan is saying that it dropped. This isn't something that, just goes through.
Well, the plane would have been on radar, that's for sure. So the any FOIA request to the radar, to the airline itself, could tell you, what height they were at, but why the plane dropped after the hit, because guys have flown through masses of bird strikes at one time, usually on takeoff, and and also flying, coming in for landings, they hit birds, and the plane doesn't. It almost sounds like they took some type of evasive action, but or after the fact, but it just the amount of damage to say it was a bird at that altitude and at that time of night is just, in my mind, it's just not plausible. So something else happened. Was there another plane above them that dropped something, or was it a piece of something coming out of the sky? A piece of a satellite or some little piece of garbage. But you would think at the speed that plane's going at and the altitude that it was at, it should have, something that hard would have punctured it. It would have went right through that metal. This, whatever it did, hit it and pushed that nose in, and it pushed it in. But again, the thing that strikes me the most is no feathers, no blood, no guts, nothing at all that resembles a bird strike. Even on the windshield, if it was a bird strike and say it hit and bounced, there would still be marks on the windshield or above the windshield, or at least at the base of at the top of the nose. That's nothing. It was a dead-on impact, and what it could be, I have no idea. But like I said, there's very few birds that fly at that altitude, and not at night.
Well, I looked up this stat before the show from the FAA, that 92% of all bird strikes with commercial civil craft occur below 3,500 feet. But between 1990 and 2013, there were 21 strikes of aircraft above 20,000 feet. But maybe it's just me, but I just can't see a bird doing that much damage. I don't know. I have had a friend who's a pilot, and a couple of years ago, he almost lost his life when he was flying around 5,000 feet in his airplane, his private airplane, and a seagull came right through the windshield. And I saw the damage that did to his face. That was eerily dangerous. But, looking at the size of this, and knowing what the size of an eagle is, which is pretty much approximately the same size as a vulture, give or take a little bit, I don't see that type of I don't even know how to explain it, that type of damage to be done.
And even if it was something other than a bird, something more solid to push that in like that, there would have been an impact point, and that whole circle is the impact point. There's like something hitting at dead center and then pushing everything in. It's just weird. The whole thing is just weird. The speed of the aircraft and the altitude, and to have something strike like that. And it had to be soft enough to disperse because it didn't penetrate the shell, but yet it had to be dense enough to push that aluminum nose in as far as it did, and in circumference also. I don't know. I have no idea. It's just a bizarre.
Our resident scientist, Eric Markham, has stated in the Spreaker chat room, it doesn't take that big of an object to cause that type of damage because of the object's speed and direction of travel. So he says it is very, very possible that a bird, even a smaller bird, could cause that amount of damage, which we believe. But, I mean, on the flip side, other planes who have hit birds, they have had feathers, they have had blood stains, you know. Unless it's raining, you know, where is that? I don't know. You know, I mean, this is one of those plausible explanations where we just don't know what really hit this. And considering the pilots are saying on descent we have 3 players admitting that it was high in altitude, you know, we just have to see. Who knows? Yeah. I mean, Chicago has been known, Butch, for a lot of strange things. UFOs over O'Hare. We got the Mothman-like creature sightings around there now. So, I mean, it could have been really anything.
I guess the thing I'm pretty much looking for in that photograph is an impact point. And I'm not seeing an impact point. I mean, if it was something smaller, like ice or something that, you know, space debris of some sort or something like that, or something off of another aircraft maybe, but there would surely be there would surely have to be an impact point, and there is no impact point. It's just a smooth push in, you know. And I know there's investigators out in Chicago that are going to look at the plane. They want to see it, and they're not hiding it. But it's strange. And, you know, I just saw somebody put on here about a drone. Well, drones don't fly that high, but
military drones do.
Well, but not the size it would do. A military drone would take that plane down. I guess they're speaking of you know, these small drones you can buy for a few $1,000s, but they don't fly that high. They don't get up to 30,000 feet. I think the best one out there right now is only good for about, I think it's 1,500 or 1,800 feet. So I don't know. It's just a puzzling photograph. You would expect a strike like that to leave some sort of a mark somewhere, and there is no mark. I blew that picture up a dozen times already, and I'm looking for a mark. I'm looking for something. Some kind of impact point, and there is none. So it was either something very large or a piece of something that fell out of the sky and hit the plane.
From my newswire, The Encounter Online, our news editor, Everett Thiemer, lives just outside of Chicago. He says, we need to keep in mind that most of those high-flying birds have already migrated from this area by this time.
Oh, okay.
Now, it's still possible, but this adds another dimension to it.
Yeah. It's just a bizarre photograph. I mean, you know, I've seen pictures of strikes before, but I mean, there's even photographs of strikes where the bird actually ripped into a wing, or took, you know, hit it that hard that it took off a piece of a tail section, you know, an empennage. It's just weird. It's just a weird photograph. Not something that you see every day, but I don't know. And you know, nobody's saying what the weather was. I guess that could be checked, but I just don't believe it was a bird. I just don't. It had to be something else. To pull that back, push that back that far, I mean, that's a big strike. And it's not plastic either. That's a metal nose. That's an aluminum nose.
To me, I think space debris is probably a more logical answer.
That could be, yeah, sure.
That to me, I mean, the speed that is coming down into the atmosphere combined with the speed of the airplane. I mean, I'm no physicist. Maybe Eric Markham, when you get an opportunity, you could think about that. But I think it was probably a piece of space debris that could have been falling. And to me, I don't think it was a UFO. I don't think it was anything that would be paranormal or cryptid. I definitely don't think, and this is my opinion, I don't think it was Mothman or anything along those lines, but it could have been coming into Chicago. But I think space debris is a more logical example of what it could be rather than, some sort of bird, since we have no bird feathers or anything along those lines.
Yeah, I think I've ruled out bird. It had to be something else. Now, how much they'll pursue it, I doubt that they'll even pursue it at all. But it was a strike, and it was a significant strike. And who knows what they hit, but they hit something or something hit them. But it must have been that hard of a hit that the pilots, the plane dropped in altitude, that the pilots didn't know what happened, that they dropped, start taking it down. Whenever there's a reaction by a pilot, a fast reaction, there's a reason for it. And they get hit, and the pilots, react. So, don't know. Don't have any idea. And like Eric says, ice. Could be ice. Could be a chunk of ice fell.
Could very well be.
A chunk of ice could do that easily. At that speed, But
well, that would be a good explanation why there is really no evidence.
Right. Yeah.
Space debris, ice. I think we've solved the mystery, man. It wasn't a bird. Wasn't a bird.
Glad we got through this one.
We did it right there. So I have to tell you, I have lately, as you know, been talking to you about our UFO gifting site that we've been going through, and that we have here in British Columbia. My friend Mark, a.k.a. Bazooka Joe, if you were in the Spreaker chat room, him and I have put a gifting site out recently, and the first time we put it out, nothing really moved. The second time we put it out, there were a couple of the glass rocks that we have on the ground that moved, but that could have been chipmunks, squirrels, porcupines, deer, whatever it could be, even though it is in a as weird as it sounds, a confined space. But the last time we went out, there were 3 different glass rocks that had moved. One had moved about 6 inches away from its original spot. Once again, could have been a chipmunk or something along those lines. But the interesting one was 2 of the rocks moved from the same formation. So what we did was we made little formations in the ground with our rocks, like a happy face, a straight line, a square, a triangle. We also made like a number 5 that you would find on a pair of dice. So the square plus the 1 in the middle. Now, in that 5, like the dice, Butch, we had 2 of the rocks moved, and I sent you the picture earlier today, about 4 inches away, and they were exactly the same distance apart as they were before. And the weird part about it, to make it even stranger, is they weren't just lying on the ground. It was like they had been a little bit compressed in. Now, if a human found our site, maybe it was them playing a hoax. Who knows? Could very well be. It is hunting season, although there were no other footprints in that area. And Mark, the guy who I do this with, is a professional tracker and hunting guide in this area, so he knows the backwoods around here very well, and that's the first thing he looks for when we go in, is the human footprints to see if there is any messing with the area with us. We didn't find any of that. I mean, I wouldn't know. I don't know what really to look for unless it's an obvious print. And there was some hail on the ground in the area. So I'm curious, when you have talked to people who have gifting sites, does it start off slow like that?
Yes. Most times it is multi-trips back to the site before something has either been moved or is missing. And as I was telling you this afternoon when we spoke, the strangest one that I've ever heard of in gifting, I mean, I've heard them all. I mean, from apples to oranges to steaks to, food of all types, toys, dolls. But this struck me. I'm trying to get a hold of the guy, but he's working pretty late. And I read his story, and I couldn't believe it. So here's a guy, independent researcher. I won't even give his state that he's in because he's been researching this site now for, I think, 6 or 7 years. And he's gotten some pretty significant evidence to date. So he went up to start his gifting, which he pretty much lets go for like 3 months, and then he redoes things. And he picked up at I believe, a yard sale, a child's flute, like the high schools give the kids when they join the band. They rent a little case with the flute and some trumpet or whatever. So he bought this thing for a few dollars, and it was just this case, a blue case with a flute in it, and has 2 pull-down latches in the front. And he took it to the gifting site, and he left it there. And he didn't open it up. He just took it to the gifting site and set it down. He goes back to check this out. The latches are open, and the flute is gone. So his first thought was, just like you said, somebody walked up upon it and found it and just took the flute. So he did whatever he had to do, took his photographs and stuff, left it just the way he found it, and left. And he went back in his normal 2, 3, 4 weeks, whatever he does. And the case is closed, and one latch is down. The other latch is up. So he opens the latch, opens up the case, and there's the flute. But instead of it sitting in its proper position where the case has, it's like a formed bottom where the flute fits in, it's actually backwards. So the flute, instead of being left to right, was now right to left. So he takes more pictures and does some more things, and he closes it up, and he doesn't latch it. And next trip back, flute's still there, the case is latched. He opens it up, and the flute is turned back the way it was before he turned it in its proper position. Now that is truly bizarre. Truly bizarre. I've never heard anything like that. I've never heard of anybody even leaving out an instrument like that of any type. Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to get a hold of him to get the whole story and, where it's progressed since the last thing I heard about it. And it's one of these areas where, kind of like your area, where it's possible that somebody could walk through, except hunters in this area, because there's no hunting on the property where he has his gifting site. So, but why would somebody even do that? And, play with the latches, one up, one down, open, closed, moving the instrument from one side to the other and back again. So, again, this time when he leaves, he closes it, puts it back in its proper thing, closes the latch in, and that's where it ended right there. But I'm trying to get a hold of him to see what happened since. But I've never heard anything like that. Never.
No, that does sound awfully weird that we will, that we would have something like that with an instrument, and I mean, who's to say? It sounds like, just listening to that story, to put my, realistic and skeptical hat on, take my tinfoil one off, that it's somebody who's found the site and maybe playing with him. You know what I'm saying? And,
that was my first thought right away. But the fact that it went missing, and then it came back, and then the latch is up, latch is down, in backwards, and then he straightens it out, and it's backwards again, the latches are shut. Why would anybody go to all that hassle? That I could see him maybe doing it once, maybe just stealing the whole works. But why, and how would they know that he's even going to come back? It's another one of those, when it comes to gifting sites, some of the most bizarre turn out to be some of the most interesting. Now, the usual throwing out donuts and making bacon and nailing beef to trees and stuff like that has produced absolutely nothing but a lot of hungry critters. But these innovative moves where things that you wouldn't think of are used, and they have, I really think that he's going to play this out as long as he can, and then he's going to take that flute and he's going to have it taken to a lab. If the flute comes up missing again and comes back again, I think this guy's going to draw the line and say, okay, enough's enough. He's going to bag it, tag it, and take it to a lab and have it checked. But it's just like I was telling you today, one of the best things out there is, if you can get a fingerprint or saliva or anything like that, what would you use? And people always say, well, fruit, bananas. Well, how do you get a fingerprint off a banana? So my best shot would be, everybody has old CD discs that they don't use, and new ones are very cheap. So clean one of those up, polish it up real good, make sure there's no fingerprints on it, and hang a few of those around and see what happens. And another thing is a mirror. Why not use a mirror? One of those plastic mirrors they sell for shaving kits when you travel. Hang one of those up. See if you get a nose print or a fingerprint or saliva. Anything.
Well, it could be anything. It could be anything that we could try. The only thing that's going to happen here is you don't know unless you try, number one. Number two, when you don't have, like a lot of investigators, and I'm like a lot of them out there who have gifting sites who don't have any sort of, trail cams to make sure it isn't somebody toying with us. You do have to try and rely on Mother Nature. You have to try and rely on the critter itself, whatever it may be, whether it's a wild animal or whether it is a Sasquatch or just a pesky human being who's trying to play a joke. But, it comes down to knowing your area as well, doesn't it?
Yes, yeah. Research areas are very, very, very important. If you have an area where you have documented sightings or documented prints were taken, or and you can go back and it's happened over a number of years, or it happened a long time ago but now it picked up again, but it's almost in the exact same area. When you set a research area, that's where you want to research. You don't want to go there and then march all over the mountain or walk down every trail that you see. You want to stay to your research area and scour that. Foot by foot. You look for everything, anything that's out of the ordinary. A lot of folks don't do that. They'll pick out an area that, first of all, is way too large to even contain. So, they say, well, there was a Bigfoot report in here, so we're going to cover the next 10 miles of this road. Well, that's not going to work. Where you should go is where the sighting was and start looking there first. And there was a really, early on in our bipedal reports, a group that was affiliated, or is affiliated with us, went out and they went to the area of the sighting and they stayed within probably a good 300, 400 yards of the sighting location, and they found a print, more of an impression than a print, near a creek. And every report that we've had has been near water or deep, dark woods, and that's exactly what this place had. So, they could have walked down the road and went on for a couple miles and found nothing, but they decided to stay in that one area and just keep walking around, and then they found something. They found that impression. Research areas are normally, in a circumference of 100 to 300 yards of the original sighting. Once you get past that, there's no really rhyme or reason or direction to go, because anything can walk off. Anything can walk off in 50 yards, but you have a better chance of finding something if you start out at your sighting point and then go from there and just stay within a certain amount of area. And then when you get through that area, you can enlarge the area if you'd like. But people always say, well, where should I go? Well, where was the sighting? You want to stay as close to the sighting area as possible. If you have a sighting, in Saskatchewan, you don't want to go to Quebec, to start your search. So keeping it tight and first of all, looking at the ground, and second of all, not having 30 people with you. When you do a ground search, 2, 3, 4 people at the very most, and spread out, not 10 feet apart. If you put your arms out your side, you should be able to touch each guy's shoulder. So that gives you a certain area that you can look in and you can view comfortably with your eyes. And doing it at night is a no-no. That's just a waste of time. Now, if you are going to do it at night, then one of the things you want to have is a black light with you. Then you'll see urine marks, blood marks, that kind of stuff. And then that'll take your investigation into other directions. But a lot of stuff is missed when research areas are described. First of all, what's the history of that area? How many sightings were in that area? What were the sightings of? Were they a Class A, or were they misidentification? And look, you get somebody out there that's never been in the woods, never hunted, or the closest to the woods they ever got was the local park, and they're out looking for Bigfoot or anything else. I mean, first of all, that could be very dangerous. Depending on what you could run into, and the fact that you have no experience. Look, a deer running across in front of you at 50 yards could look like anything to anybody. And if it's a bear, you want to make sure it's going away from you. But I don't know. Research areas are kind of like a crime scene. And, I mean, that's how we treat it. To the best of my knowledge, running through the woods at night or daytime or whatever has produced zero. The people that have stayed put, either using cameras or close groundwork, are the ones that they produce results. Now, they're not producing results that are needed, but at least they're producing results, either in casts or disturbances or pathways that weren't there maybe a year prior. And that was another thing I was reading an article where two gentlemen had been looking at a long area of research, and they were just doing their research thing. They went up in the part of the summer that they go up, and they noticed that there were 2 paths that were cut in over the winter, and there's no animal paths, no bear, no deer, nothing like that. But what they did when they walked in, I think he said like 30, 40 yards in the one path, they found 3 good prints. So if you're looking for something, then you really should look. Don't sit there waiting for a howl or a tree knock or anything like that. Just look. Start looking. Anything that looks strange, pick it up and bag it, tag it. If you find a bone and it's got chew marks on it, bag it and tag it. Get it looked at. It could be harmless. It could have been just any other creature in the woods that was chewing on it. Then again, it could be something else. That's what we look for.
It's starting to get winter here, and the snow is supposed to start falling this weekend, which is very normal for this area. And the area where we have the gifting site is probably an area that will see anywhere between 2 to 5 feet of snow accumulated at any given time. Now, do you suggest that we continue, or that people in general continue, even in the snow, to continue with some sort of gifting site for this creature?
Yeah, just get it off the ground. Tree stump, put a log across a couple trees and do your setup there. Put it in a place where it's not going to be covered by 2, 3, 4 foot of snow. I like going out when it's colder, and not only for the UFO stuff, but for tracking anything, because not only can you see if somebody was there because they left their tracks, a human, or there are tracks there that shouldn't be there. Maybe in the particular area where somebody lives, they don't have wolves, but all of a sudden they have wolf track. Or an area of the country where they don't have bears, and all of a sudden, they're seeing bear tracks. I mean, there's all kind of stuff that tracks can tell you, and you're very lucky that you have a tracker with you. I have one that lives on the other side of the state, and he does come in to help us. But these guys that know track, I mean, they're amazing. I'm looking at something and I'm going like, wow, what's that? And the guy goes, it's probably a beagle. But, yeah, just get everything up high. Get it off the ground. A lot of guys do a lot of gifting in the wintertime. A lot more than I thought anyway. But it's one of those things where the more bizarre your thought comes up with the way of doing something, whether it's hanging it from a tree or suspending it from a branch or laying it across some high rocks or something like that, it's amazing what happens. I mean, how stuff gets moved around, taken, then replaced with something else. Or, one of the biggest things with that is really comes a lot out of the gifting sites are people will leave something, no matter what it is, something, and it'll get replaced by acorns or sticks or rocks. Now, there's no squirrel that's going to take your marble or whatever you left and come back and give you a stick. Or it's bizarre. There's something out there that does that. It's just not. I can't imagine there's people actually following other people to get into their sites, especially in the wintertime. And then there's been some bizarre reports of gifting, where there was one in give me a second, I think it was either New Hampshire, Connecticut, somewhere up in that area, where a guy left a bucket, like a little kid's sand bucket, and he just had it filled with all kind of junk, thimbles, a couple little toys, some nuts, just a conglomeration of stuff. And but it was mostly edible things. And he went back to his gifting site after a few weeks, and there was a deer head where the bucket was. The bucket was gone, but the deer head was there.
That's kind of grotesque in a trade.
Yeah.
But it's nature.
Yeah. It's
absolutely nature. When we hear of all of these gifting sites that are out there, Butch, from the people I have talked to who have their gifting sites, it always seems to be a very, lack of a better term, a docile or almost timidly friendly type of interaction with each other. Does this give credence to what kind of creature we are dealing with?
Well, you can go a lot of ways with that. Look, the amount of reports over all these years of people that were hurt or injured or killed by a Bigfoot have never been proven. People that have stones thrown at their car and damage to their RVs and stuff have all proved to be hoaxes. They got caught. Government involvement, is it possible? Absolutely. You know, especially the Mount St. Helens, the burned creatures that were taken out and cared for. Yeah, I could see them doing that. If these things were as rowdy as some people want to make them and portray them in drawings and stuff like that, where they're ripping up animals and they're breaking into homes and cabins, you know, not one of those things has ever come out to be true. Not one. Now, looking in a window, well, it's looking in a window. I mean, you know, but you read these reports where somebody says, well, it broke down the door and it killed my dog and it ate everything in the house and it did all this damage. That didn't happen. You know, people forget. You can check a police report to find that out. And it ain't like there isn't going to be a police report for something like that. I mean, there's damage, you know. But, and the shooting of Bigfoot, that's just a crock. These guys aren't the hide-and-seek champions of the world for no reason whatsoever. And then that takes us to the point, are they even there? Are they something that can appear at will or disappear at will? Can it blend in? Can it camouflage itself? Look, you know, animals in the woods, they're born to camouflage themselves. You know, I've walked past coyotes already that if I had took a step to the left, I'd have tripped over them. I never saw it. My hunting buddy did. I didn't. I was within a step of it. He just stood still and sat there, you know, just looked at me as I walked by. I never saw him.
But in saying that, it seems that we are dealing with a creature that could be just as curious as us or of us than as we are of it. Could you draw that estimation by the communication through gifting sites? Because there are some people who have got some incredible information by quote-unquote gifts that have been traded. It's almost like a trading game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, there's reports out there where people they've been doing this for years. The whole family does it. You know, they have a certain spot they take stuff to, and they get certain things in return. And that to me is amazing. I mean, the one story is kind of funny because it actually took place around Easter time, and it was I believe it was in Ohio. I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure it was Ohio. And it was around Easter time, and one of the little guys in the family said, you know, are we going to take out some Easter eggs for our friend? And the mother said, well, sure. So she made up a little Easter egg basket, right? And the kid and her, and they go out and they put this little basket with the Easter eggs in it, and a couple of other little goodies in there. And they kind of forgot about it, and they bring the kid home from school one day, and as they pull in the driveway, she thought she saw something lying on the steps going into the side of the house. So where they parked the car, they go in the front of the house. So she went to the back and opened up the door, and there was corn, dried corn stalks, about 6 of them with the corn still on them, and they were tied in the middle with some cornstalk material, like a gift, just tied in a bundle, in a bunch, just laying on the porch. Now that to me that shows intelligence. You brought me something. I don't have anything like that to give you, so I'm going to give you what I have access to. And I have access to dried corn, so I'm going to give you a bundle of dried corn. And to my knowledge, they've been doing it till this day. For generations, they've been doing it. Never gave up the location, never gave up the name.
No, I fully understand with that. And Butch, I'm going to get you to hold on as we are about to wrap up hour number 1 of Spaced Out Radio tonight. We're going to get to your questions. I know Adam has one on gifting sites. We are going to get to those here right after the break. Butch Witkowski is our guest tonight on the Mighty SOR. He comes on the final Monday of every month, which we call this segment Strange Days. Love it when Butch is on. I know you guys do too. More Bigfoot, Mothman, bipedal canines, and whatever else comes up. We still got to figure out what Butch is going to be for Halloween. I'm sure he dresses up. He seems like that kind of a guy. We'll find out right after the break on Spaced Out Radio.
365 days a year, we're in the field, investigating UFO sightings, talking to alien abductees, and visiting secret military locations like Area 51. We're UFO Seekers, official partner of Spaced Out Radio. Follow our daily search for the truth at ufoseekers.com or like us on social media. Catch us on Spaced Out Radio every third Monday of the month as we discuss Area 51, UFOs, and more. And also don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube.
From coast to coast to coast, Blacklight Uncharted is taking on the paranormal across Canada. From ghostly hauntings to the UFOs flying above in conjunction with MUFON Canada, we're closely investigating what's going on in the northern skies and checking out the apparitions that walk among us. Check out our videos right here at spacedoutradio.com. We want to know your thoughts, we want to hear your experiences, and we want you to share your stories. The answers are out there, and we intend to find them.
Would you like to become one of our space travelers? All you have to do is click on the Space Travelers icon at spacedoutradio.com. For only $5 a month, you can get access to some great prizes, as well as private monthly shows, newsletters, and a members-only section on our website. Become a space traveler today.
It's paranormal news at its finest. Welcome to The Encounter. At spacedoutradio.com, The Encounter online is SOR's trusted news source for everything weird and strange going on around the world. This is news editor Eric Markham. Our team of journalists are scouring the planet for those strange stories that rarely make the mainstream. No fear-mongering or fake news here. Head over to spacedoutradio.com and encounter The Encounter.
Want to learn more about aliens, cover-ups, conspiracies, cryptids, and the paranormal? All you have to do is tune in S4 as we take over Spaced Out Radio Night, starting at midnight Pacific, 3 a.m. Eastern, each and every Saturday night, right after Spaced Out Saturdays. Hi there, this is Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal. Join me, Corey Ruiz, and friends as we discuss the hot topics of the night. It's fun, entertaining, and as dark as the night. Find us at spacedoutradio.com.
Hey, this is Canadian Paranormal Investigator Mike Moore. The third Wednesday of every month, I'll be teaming up with Dave Scott to bring you Ghosts of the Great White North. Each month, we will bring on guests from across Canada to discuss their ghostly encounters. Canada is a paranormal hotbed with stories you've never heard, so we're going to bring them to you. So get comfy on your Chesterfield, grab a donut, and join us, eh?
Are you an experiencer? Have you had run-ins with strange creatures you can't explain? ETs, Dogman, Bigfoot, werewolves? They're enough to scare the daylights out of anyone. Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski from UFO Cop. And on the last Monday of every month, you can listen to me and the host, Dave Scott, talk about the weird and the strange being reported on Spaced Out Radio. I'm going to bring my investigations and sources, you bring your experiences, and we'll figure out the rest together. Strange Days on Spaced Out Radio. Come tune us in at spacedoutradio.com.
Want a place to share your experiences without feeling judged? We have the place for you. If you've experienced sightings or contact with ETs, ghosts, cryptids, or UFOs, and you'd like someone to confidentially look into the matter, just fill out an SOR Sightlines report. Our goal is to help you get the answers you need to the experiences you've had with our professional team of researchers. Your information stays 100% confidential. The SOR Sightlines report. Fill out your experience today only at spacedoutradio.com.
Psychic Sundays, spiritual communication, ET contact, Sasquatch in your backyard. We will have it all on Cosmic Passport with me, Elizabeth Anglin. Each Sunday, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, at spacedoutradio.com, I will take you on a journey of enlightenment. The goal is learning from the soul on out. We'd love it if you joined our experience. Cosmic Passport, heard Sundays at spacedoutradio.com.
Are you interested in advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Head to our website at spacedoutradio.com and click on our advertising tab. There, you will find an assortment of ways you can get your product out there with us, from radio commercials to banners and social media. Have a product you like our hosts to endorse? We can do that too. Visit spacedoutradio.com for more details.
From British Columbia to Northern California, Pacific North Weird has Cascadia covered. Check out our feature videos at spacedoutradio.com, where I, Vincent Zunza, and my super sleuth partner Alexandra Sullivan track down the weird and strange stories from around the Pacific Northwest, from Bigfoot to Mel's Hole and everything in between. This is what makes life exciting. So why report the normal when we can report the Pacific North Weird right here at spacedoutradio.com.
Don't have time to listen to Spaced Out Radio live? Wherever you are, the car, the office, the shower, or even if you're traveling, we're right here for you. Each Spaced Out Radio show can be found on iTunes, TuneIn, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. It's the perfect way for you to catch up on our shows. For more information, just head over to our website, spacedoutradio.com, and tune in to us today.
Welcome to Spaced Out Saturdays with me, Dave Cruz from Beyond the Strange. Our weekly feature on spacedoutradio.com will take you around the world discussing everything from the paranormal to the latest conspiracies from the top guests in their fields. We won't leave any story uncovered. Spaced Out Saturdays at spacedoutradio.com starting 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. And hit us up on Twitter using the hashtag SpacedOutRadio. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Welcome back to the second hour of Spaced Out Radio. Tonight, I am your host, Dave Scott. Good to have you with us. Tomorrow night on the program for Halloween night, Karen Dahlman is going to join us. We are going to be talking about Ouija board, live Ouija board session tomorrow night on Spaced Out Radio. We will take your questions in the chat rooms. Make sure you have a pen and paper ready to follow along with us, and we'll see where this goes. We did it last year. We'll do it again this year. Highly successful show of ours, so I hope you stay tuned tomorrow night starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time. We want to welcome in everyone listening in on WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia, home of The Walking Dead. We are live as well on the United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans and over 160 countries around the world. Good to have you with us. We're also live on KTLK, The Fringe FM, Renegade Talk Radio out of Las Vegas. And if you're listening in on Revolution Radio, remember the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to freedomslips.com and donate today. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Calipesian. Calipesian is your password. Make sure you use it wisely, Space Travelers, as Bill sets the password each and every night right here on the mighty SOR. Now, if you want to follow us on social media, you can do so on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Use the hashtag Spaced Out Radio if you want to connect live with me during the show as well. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. You can also join us for live chat in the SOR Space Travelers group on Facebook. We're on Instagram, Dave Scott, SOR. You can listen to us on iHeartRadio in the United States, TalkStream Live, tune us in on TuneIn, download and subscribe to our shows on iTunes. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including joining the SOR Space Travelers Club for $5 a month. You can shop at our Spaced Out Radio store, rock out to some Bumblefoot, watch UFO Seekers or Contact TV videos, or catch the latest news by our editor Everett Thiemer on the Encounter Online. It is a great source for all of your information, everything at spacedoutradio.com. From UFOcop.com, investigative researcher Butch Witkowski. He is here the final Monday of every month with a tale we call around here Strange Days. How you doing, my friend?
I'm good.
I'm good, too. I want to get to Adam's question right off the bat. He is asking, how far out should a gifting site be?
From the actual sighting area, I would probably say just a few yards, 10, 20 yards maybe.
But do you want it in an area that is not very used? I would say
Correct.
yes on that.
Yeah, you don't want it in an area where there's a path or trail. But most reports are not on paths or trails. Most reports are, in the woods. So I would say, if you have a good location of where the sighting took place, try to stay as close to it as possible. And another thing, when you're walking out, if it's soft ground, get a branch with some leaves on it and, brush out your own tracks so you don't get confused next time you go back. And, people have a lot of tricks of looking for tracks. Some people spread brown flour, baking flour, brown flour around the site so they can see disturbances. But it's kind of hard to do on a forest floor because you got everything. You got pine needles, you got leaves, you got branches, you got all that kind of stuff. But if you got a smooth area that's or relatively smooth, off the beaten path, brown flour would work. Even if little critters got in there and got at it, you'd be able to see that. But if something big stepped in it, you'd also be able to see that. But I'm one of those guys that I like it when it's cold and there's a little bit of snow on the ground. That tells you a lot.
No, absolutely. Absolutely it does, because let's face it, even when I would go fishing down in the valley, I prayed for those rainy, windy days. It was horrific sitting out there on the river, and fishing away where you're shivering. But on the flip side, it kept all the fair weather people away.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And another thing you don't ever want to do is you don't ever want to share a research site. We talk a lot about all our expeditions into central and north central Pennsylvania on bipedals, but I've never given out the exact county or location. Never. So if somebody's, I might mention a town that might be close, but in my mind might be close, could be 250 mile away. So you want to keep that stuff to yourself if you're serious about it. And, even if you post something about what your find is, you don't ever want to give out your location. If you can generalize the area, but it's bad because if you give out the exact location, I will guarantee you there'll be people there, probably the next day.
Oh, we've already had a few people inquire, and we're always like, no, can't say anything. Sorry about that.
Yeah, and that's the way to be. It's not, you're not being nasty or anything, but, the ramifications of giving out your location is just, that's bad. You go to your little secret spot, right, and you pull up and there's 5 cars parked there, and they're having a cookout. Like, what the hell?
Absolutely, and let's face it, there are people out there who are tricksters. They would love to play with some minds, just for the hell of it.
Oh, sure. Or that, or, they can't find anything on their own, so they're trying to, get into somebody else's research or research area. and they'll do whatever they have to do to get there.
If you were to set up a gifting site, or one of our listeners was to set up a gifting site, what would you express for them to do?
Well, first thing is they have to have a location where there's been something, some type of report of some sort. And then at that point, they want to look around and check around and, see if they can come up with anything on the ground first. And if they think it's a good spot, there's multiple reports, or, there's some prints or partial prints, or, some tree breaks or stuff like that doesn't look quite up to par or natural, then they should, that should be the site, and set up their gifting right there. Don't put everything in one location, kind of spread it out. But gifting is very easy. Thinking of what to gift is the hard part. Now, when I heard the thing about the musical instrument, I went like, that's nuts. But then when I read it, I went like, that's brilliant. And again, he didn't have any idea what would happen. It would disappear or it wouldn't be there, but now he's playing this back and forth, and I'm anxious to continue more of his story and see what he comes up with. I just thought that was brilliant.
So for somebody who's just setting on out to do this, would you recommend CDs? Would you recommend toy cars? What would you recommend? Because I know in my area, the one thing we do not take in there is we do not take food in there. I know some people do, but there's a lot of animals, when they get the smell, they are just going to wreak havoc on it, and there's no way you'd be able to tell what is going on or what's taking it unless you had a game cam.
Yeah, food's out of the question. No type of food. CD discs hung from trees, shiny discs, Christmas ornaments, Christmas tree bulbs, the balls, the brighter the better. Anything that, sun can reflect off of, moonlight can reflect off of, anything that'll grab attention that's not ordinarily in the woods. So what I'm saying is you don't hang up pine cones. Stuff on the ground, toys, shiny objects, marbles. I know one guy that was, was putting out, was building little huts with Lincoln logs. I didn't even know they made those anymore. And he'd come and they'd be rearranged, or one would be closer than it was before. And measure and photograph what you leave, because that's going to tell you what happened when you weren't there. If you got a game cam, that's good too, but a good game cam is expensive. And the ones that are cheap that you can get at Walmart for $39.95, they're about as worthless as boobs on a bull. So I would say whatever comes in your mind that's shiny, a water bottle, a clear plastic water bottle, strung from a tree with some marbles in it. Let the wind make the noise. Now the wind chimes are out of the question, but they make those wind chime things that they don't make any noise. There's no chimes on them. They're just these little glitter balls and stuff. They're okay. Anything that will attract attention that isn't in the woods, is not normally seen in the woods, and that's what you're trying to do, get attention. Get them to touch, to move, to replace, to swap. I mean, then you got something going. And always be respectful, I know a lot of guys that when they're done, they'll just look around and go like, well, if we're around, thank you. Hope to see you soon. Bye. We're leaving. And, they don't know if anybody's listening or not. And if the thing was close enough, it could probably be standing beside of you. You wouldn't know it anyway. But and be respectful of where you're at. You're in the woods, and, you don't want to leave stuff out there that could cause a problem. Don't go out there and leave a quarter stick of dynamite or something, or a pack of matches. Just everyday things that are shiny baubles, things that will spin in the wind. And so you go in and you find that little CD disc you put up in the tree, and there's fingerprints on it. Well, if you know how to take a fingerprint, do that, and then bag it and tag it. If you don't, just take it down, bag it, and take it to your local police department. Tell them you need that fingerprint. They'll do it for you. And then you got something.
I got a question coming in from Twitter from Muji Boy. He is asking, how would you know if a Bigfoot visited your gifting site? What would be the smoking gun?
Oh, a smoking gun would be kind of like the guy with the instrument, or the guy with the logs. I mean, especially the guy with the Lincoln logs. I mean, his gifting site is so far back in the woods, he has to drive to it, and then he has to get out and walk a mile. There's no way anybody's back in there. And he built these little a lean-to with Lincoln logs, and he first started spacing them 2 foot apart. There's 3 of them. And he used to have them up on the website, but then people just started driving him nuts. He took it down, but it used to be on YouTube. And they were 2 foot apart, exactly 2 foot. And he'd come back, and one would be 3 foot, another one would be in the back 5 foot, and he'd put them back to where they were. And this went on for a year. And he had game cam set up. All he got was blur. There was a blur, and he couldn't explain it. He had the camera checked. There was nothing there. But I would say, having something where you have an object or objects that are being moved, but they're not taken. Or if something taken, it's replaced by something, like the guy that got rocks back. He had some shiny baubles and toys out there, and they turned up missing. But in their exact place, were round, smooth river rocks. So now, the closest river to that location is 5 miles away. Ain't nobody going to go down to that river and pick up river rocks and come up and steal toy just to put river rocks down. So there's an intelligence you're dealing with. And once people realize that there is an intelligence out there, that they're not just dealing with some dumb animal like most of these guys think, maybe someday there will be a connection made, or a one-on-one. And maybe that's happened already. But after 50 years, there really isn't any conclusive proof that they're alive and they're out there. But there isn't any proof the other way either, that they're dead and they were never there. So I just think the more things that people try, and the weirder the better. I mean, there can be all kind of stuff that can be found, like that idiot that left a sponge ball out with razor blades sticking out of it. Thank God that was found by somebody before any animal got to it. But, I mean, he was hoping to get a blood sample. Well, I would have taken that ball and shoved it in a place where the sun don't shine. He would have had all the blood samples he needed. People have to realize that, just like, with these bipedals, I don't know if they're real. I have never seen one. I know that strange things have happened when we've been out there. And reports go back into the 1800s that describe the same creature. But it's just like Bigfoot, it's the same thing. So I can't say they exist, and I can't say they don't exist because I don't know. Now, if I get a picture or I get some kind of evidence that's tangible, and like a bite mark that's twice as big or 3 times as big as a gray wolf, I'm good, because there ain't no creature out there like that. So you have to think of what you could get. Could you get saliva? Could you get fingerprints? Could you get a smudge? Even a smudge on a disc, like something reached up and sniffed it. Well, the smudge is there. The DNA can be checked. So, and there's places that do that for free, especially the animal research lab down in Australia. I mean, they'll tell you what you got. I tell people to get familiar what scat looks like. Bear scat, deer scat, wolf scat, dog scat. A Bigfoot scat would have to be similar to a human or an ape, and a huge pile. And I would think that you would find in there nuts, berries, maybe skin, deer skin, something like that, hair maybe. Excuse me. It's just, people have to have a different thinking when they get out there. You know, it's not deer season. They don't know what they're going for. You know, they're not going to be able to get themselves all dressed up and decked out because they're going to go hunt Bigfoot, because they don't even know what they're looking for. Everybody has an idea what they look like, but, you know, there have been sightings where people have come pretty much face-to-face with these things, and they say, you know, when you're looking at them, they're more human-looking than they are anything else. And a researcher out of Oklahoma, and it happened here in Pennsylvania, where he was on one side of a stream, and as he came over a knob, he thought it was a fisherman reaching down to pick up his gear, and when it stood up, it was a Bigfoot, and it was holding a fish. And he was standing there with a .44 Magnum on his hip, and he said, I couldn't shoot that, it was a man. He said, looked just like a man. So what we're dealing with out there, we have no idea. And all the stories and all the nonsense reports, and then there's those good ones where, you know, people hear like they're being followed. We've had that in bipedal reports where people felt like they were being followed through the woods. They stop, it stops. And we've had that from game park rangers and game people. We've had that just from or recently from a researcher out in Wisconsin, who felt he was being watched and followed. When he stopped, it stopped, and he said he didn't even want to turn around because he had the feeling that it was right behind him. And then it walked off.
Well, I can tell you this. When a couple of weeks ago, when Bazooka Joe and I were at the gifting site, and we went back towards where the printing area, where the print was that we found, we literally were hanging out there, and we heard two very heavy footsteps to the east of us, probably 50, 60 yards. Not that far. And Joe, being someone who is very familiar with the wildlife in our area, being a hunter and a tracker and a hunting guide, he ever so slowly cocked his rifle and made it as loud as he possibly could, so that way whatever it was there knew that we were there. So we had the sound on the right, or pardon me, on the east. But there's a lot of people, Butch, and I would argue this with anybody. If you're in the wilderness, or you've been around these creatures like Bigfoot or bears or whatever it is, there's a different energy when you know you were being watched. Does that make sense?
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely. So what happened there was I was looking west, and I just could not take my eyes off the west. And I'm looking probably 150 feet, 200 feet through this tree line. And I just had this feeling that there was something there. So I kind of said out loud, I kind of yelled, I said, come on, give me a sign that something is there where I'm looking, because I feel it. I can't see anything, because we're dealing with the reigning hide-and-seek champion. But I could feel it. And probably 5-10 seconds later, nature's alarm clock, the squirrel starts chirping off right in that area where I was looking. I found that to be very ironic. Now, I can't say it was a Sasquatch. I'm not about to go down that road. Could have been a bear, a wolf, a cougar, a deer, a rabbit. Yeah. Could have been anything. But it was just very eerily interesting, if I could use that word, that right where I was looking, that's where that squirrel was. And he was chirping on down, tipping me off that there was something there.
Well, you know, one of our guys was out hunting, and small game, and went to his local spot. And the whole time he was walking in, he just had this feeling that he wasn't alone. And so he gets into his spot, and he settles himself in and loads his shotgun. Now, he's only got small game shot. He's got bird shot there, small game. And he said he got so uneasy he couldn't move. He just said there was something behind him. And then he heard something walking behind him. And it off to the left, then it was off to the right, then it was back right behind him again. Now, he said, in my best guess, and this guy's a tracker, he said, I figured it was probably 20, 25 feet behind me. He said, my first thought was it was a bear, and he said, here I sit with a shotgun loaded with bird shot, small shot. And so he said he thought his best bet was to just sit there and see what happened. Well, this went on for hours. And then it was in front of him. And then it was on the side. And he saw nothing. Heard it walk away, heard it come back, but saw nothing. And then it stopped. And it just kind of like wandered off, the walking got further away. And he said he stayed there for a little bit, and then he decided to get up and go back to the car, which he did. And he looked around as he was going out for footprints and, anything like that. And he was more concerned it was a bear. But he got back to his car, and he said whatever it was, if it wanted me, all it had to do was reach out and grab me. I was right there. And he said, I think if it would have been a bear, it would have attacked him because he was sitting down. He was vulnerable. The gun wasn't going to stop anything he had. And he said he thinks it was just messing with him. Until this day, he will not go back to that spot. Period.
Why
he said, he said he thinks he ventured into its area, and although it didn't do anything, it didn't like that he was there, and it was just letting him know that it's his area and not his area, so when you leave, don't come back. And he hasn't gone back either.
Why do you think so many people who have these feelings or occurrences with Sasquatch always feel it to be negative? Is it their own nerves because they have never dealt with anything like this before? Because if we are talking about creatures that we are putting gifting sites up to, this is something that, like, to me, I could see where it could rip a deer apart, but... Yep. But from all signs, it seems like it is a very docile creature and not an aggressive creature.
Right. Well, we find it even in the bipedal reports that we've had and ones that we've researched and pulled up where, and I've said this before, these things have been encountered with guys with very high-power rifles. Knocked on anything that's running around this in the northern part of the country. And they can't shoot. Something tells them just don't do it. Just don't shoot. Whether it's telepathically or they have this fear in them. And one guy was just 100 yards off, staring at it. It was staring at him. It was growling at him, and he still didn't shoot. He said something told me just don't shoot. So people say, well, it's probably telepathic. Well, I don't know that, but all I know is what people say. And in the first report where we had 3 guys go back the next day with guns, loaded the bear. And they walked in and they all stopped and turned around and backed out thinking, we go any further or do anything dumb here, we're going to die. And they're gone. They just backed out of there. So what causes that flee or fear type thing, I don't know. All I know is when we go in, and again, not Bigfoot, but the bipedals, we're treating everything with the utmost respect because we don't know what we're dealing with. And I can't go in as a predator, looking for a predator, because I don't know that it's a predator, so why would I act like one? And I get people laugh at us because we carry non-lethal weapons, but like I said, if I was out hunting, I'd have a hunting rifle. But I'm not out hunting. I'm out researching, and I'm out trying to prove that this thing exists. And I'm not out there to kill anything. With the stuff that we have, we can ward off, something that gets nasty. A bear decides to get a little ugly, we can send him on his way. Or a coy wolf or something like that. So I'm not worried about that. That's just, we'll give them a whack in the butt and off they'll go. But I don't know. It's when you're doing this, seriously doing it, and I don't mean the guys that go out a weekend and take the beer and hot dogs and all that crap. I mean guys that are out there doing it seriously, really looking for an answer. It is a different mindset that you have to be in when you get out there, that, it's not the hunter looking for the hunted or vice versa. It's just, a researcher looking for an answer. And once they get that in their mind, that they're a researcher looking for an answer and they're not out there to be a big game hunter, then it's, I'm more apt to get a response with that feeling or with that mindset than I am to go out there with the mindset that I'm going out here to kill something. I'm going to mount a 50 caliber machine gun up on top of the truck and we're going to kill everything. No, I just don't believe that's the right way. And there are guys out there that they go loaded for bear, man. I've seen pictures of researchers, boy, they got more guns on them than, they look like a Western movie from the 60s. But we're just not going to do it.
I got a question coming in from BTO in the chat room here. Why not use fruits and vegetables at a gifting site? Or donuts or bacon or stuff like that? And and I'll let you answer that and I'll get to part two.
Oh, because other animals will get to it. I mean, the ground animals, squirrels, porcupines, anything. I mean, they'll eat that stuff up in a heartbeat. So whatever you set down is going to be gone. If somebody's going to go out there and start throwing, putting ribs on the tree and hanging steaks off of branches, I'm going to be right behind them with a grill.
The second part of the question is, with the instrument that was left at the gifting site, were there any fingerprints and or hair left behind since the instrument was placed opposite to what it was initially placed?
Yeah, well, that's what I'm trying to find out. I'm trying to reach the guy, but it's like his wife said, he's working overtime, so it's kind of hard for me to get a hold of him. So I just gave him a bunch of phone numbers where he can contact me, but that's one of the questions I have for him. Did he see any fingerprints, any hair, or anything like that? And but I'm pretty sure that this guy's been at it long enough to know that if there is anything like that, he's going to just bag it and get it out of there and have it looked at. But I would think that for something to take it and turn it around, there has to be some type of fingerprints there. And another thing, do we even know that they have fingerprints? That's another question. Somebody said that a while back, and I went like, I don't know. Do they? Do they have fingerprints? Do they have dermal ridges? Maybe. Maybe not.
We have an interesting story out here in British Columbia and Alberta that came into the news last week, and I'm curious to get your opinion on it. There was a lot made about Sasquatch investigator Todd Standing a few years ago.
Oh, boy.
And then he disappeared for a while. As it was alleged, his sister or sister-in-law was a professional Hollywood makeup artist. And he took a lot of criticism, especially for charging for the videos that he had allegedly caught of live Sasquatch, and that this group had accepted him and allowed them to be filmed, which a lot of people in this area of field of interest really didn't agree with. Long story short, he has filed a civil suit in both British Columbia and Alberta about trying to make Sasquatch a protected species in each province. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, he tried that in the United States too. I forget which state. It's Montana. Is it Montana or Wyoming where they're protected? And I think Oregon has a bill up, and Washington State has a bill up to make them protected. When it comes to Todd Standing, never met the guy. I've read his stuff. I've seen his pictures. I've seen his research. And my old grandma used to tell me, if you can't say anything good about somebody, don't say anything. That's just about the best I can come up with Todd Standing.
Well, with people who are unfamiliar with who he is, could you tell us what you know about him? Let's go back in time a little bit.
I guess his most famous photograph was it was such a close-up. I mean, it was like, somebody auditioning for a play of the head of a creature, a Bigfoot, Sasquatch, looking through some bushes. Now, the distance to the Sasquatch, from the camera was only a few feet. And when he was asked about, what happened after he took the picture, well, there's all kind of excuses, and then there was the sleeping Squatch, where he snuck up on it, or one of his crew snuck up on it and took a fur sample. Now, this is a creature that cannot be found, is seen, but cannot be found, cannot be tracked. But this guy snuck up on one that was sleeping. I don't think so. He's just been very controversial in the Bigfoot arena, and publicity and getting paid is number one. And when people start looking for publicity and to get a paycheck, I pretty much shut them off right away. I'd rather sit and listen to some guy at a conference who's not a professional speaker. He's just a researcher, come out with all his information, and he'll have my attention for the whole time he talks. A guy like Todd stands up, and there's more than just him. There's a couple of them out there where they, spread the same manure for years, and they get paid for it. And that just makes me crazy.
Yes, and I want to thank Andrew on Twitter for that question about Todd Standing. I hope he actually can do it, though. I think anybody who has seen the creature, especially in either British Columbia or in Alberta, who's run into this creature. I have seen two. Mrs. Spaced Out Radio has seen one, both in different areas. I think that it would be outstanding to have this legend actually protected. It doesn't hurt the government. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't hurt them at all to legislate this. If they don't believe it, great. Great. You can have a little fun with it on a Friday afternoon where you need that press release to end the day in politics. You know what I'm saying? You can do that. But if it does turn out to be true, it's protected.
Mm-hmm.
So I really do believe it's a smart move by him.
But now, is he for or against the protection?
No, he is pushing for.
Oh, okay. I thought he was pushing against.
Yes.
Because in Montana or Wyoming, he actually pushed the other way.
Why would he push the other way?
That was his research area.
Yes. So, do you think something like this may have, and I don't believe very many, if any, of our politicians actually know who Todd Standing is. Mm-hmm. But do you think if it was somebody more famous, say a Les Stroud or a John Bindernagel or somebody along those lines, do you think if it was one of them, it would have made a difference?
Maybe Bindernagel. I don't think Stroud no. Probably Bindernagel. somebody that's been at it a long, long time. These guys haven't been out there that long. Sasquatch research really only took off when it hit the television, where, they had the reality shows every week about chasing Bigfoot, shooting Bigfoot, trapping Bigfoot, and all the other stuff. Up until then, there were very few researchers of any standing, no pun intended. And then there were the ones that were out there that they've never set foot in the woods. They were the ones that were writing the books and giving the big conferences and stuff like that. So I always tell people, if you're going to get involved in this, know who you're listening to or who you're reading about or what you're reading. And then, I don't know. I just think that I hope that somewhere along the line, somebody has made some kind of contact or has gotten some kind of proof, and they're just holding back on it because they know what'll happen.
Well, Dawn brings up a good point in the chat room, Butch. She says, yes, it can hurt the government because there would be no infrastructure that could happen in certain locations in order to protect Sasquatch habitat, if that habitat is found.
Yeah, that's true. Sure.
So when you think about it along those lines, it does cause a lot of people some strife. Because in British Columbia, I can't speak for Washington State or Alberta or wherever else, but I know here in British Columbia, we're 90% trees and forests. And out of all of those trees and the forest grounds, this creature is seen absolutely everywhere. So you would pretty much have to shut down all natural resources, from mining to forestry, if you started finding these habitats where this creature was found living.
Well, I guess that would be if they stay in a certain area. Most researchers think that they move. They move with the weather. They move with the herds of deer, etc. They move with the food source. There's a lot more to, making it a protected animal than if it is an animal. We don't know if it's an animal. We don't even know if it's a primate. I mean, we don't know what it is. There's just no evidence. If somebody had evidence that proved, well, I got these hairs, and they come up as an unknown primate, or unknown this or an unknown that, well, then you got something. But there's been no evidence like that whatsoever. Sightings, people will say, hey, I'll swear on my dead mother's grave what I saw. And, you're going to believe them, but you can't take that statement and say that's proof. This whole thing, they've been around forever, as far as I'm concerned. Going back to the indigenous and the nations. And then you have people that they knew nothing about this until 50 years ago. And then when the reality shows popped up, then you had a whole other group of people out there doing their thing. But it's like ufology. Something will happen somewhere. Either one will come down and the government won't get to it first, or something will happen in the sky, accident or whatever. That'll prove something's there. Pretty much everybody in ufology knows there's something up there. We just don't know what it is. Just like with Sasquatch. We know there's something out there. We just don't know what it is. And, it's just going to take that stupid incident to make things right and to answer a lot of questions. And if people are sitting back waiting for disclosure on UFOs, they're going to be waiting a long time, because that's never going to happen. There's nobody to disclose that. But Sasquatch is a whole new thing because it's, could it have human traits? Yes. Could it be around from long time past? Yes. They're seen all over the world, different forms, different shapes, different sizes, but they are seen all over the world. And, somebody lives in some deep, dark canyon in the middle of Nepal or somewhere where there hasn't been, anybody driving through or walking through or riding through in 50 years. How do they know all these stories? Where'd they come from? I think Sasquatch is one of the strangest cases out there in cryptozoology. I mean, it far surpasses Loch Ness Monster and even the bipedals. I mean, the bipedal's been around a long time too, but when you match up the amount of bipedal sightings opposed to Dogman sightings opposed to Bigfoot sightings, I mean, you're talking a whole nother realm. I mean, we got a drop in the bucket with bipedals over a period of, since the 1860s to now, where, the Sasquatch reports and sightings go back centuries. And again, that's all over the world, not just here. So what are we dealing with out in the woods? I have no idea. But boy, I'll tell you what, I'd sure like to talk to the person that actually gets some kind of evidence. Man, they'll get any help they can get from me, they'll get instantly. But again, you got the hoaxers,
Oh, I understand that. Brandy has an interesting question here. She says she is an avid dowser. Do you know of anybody who's tried dowsing for Sasquatch or a Sasquatch area?
No. I asked that question at a conference one time where we had a gentleman that does a lot of dowsing in the paranormal field. And I asked him if, he had ever used it for anything other than paranormal. And he said no, and I have never read a report or heard a researcher say that they used dowsing rods for the search. Good idea, though.
Now, I do know one because my friend Corey, who lives up here, and she helps me out with the ghost hunts and behind the scenes with some Spaced Out Radio stuff. She actually, a couple years ago, she is with a group called the Questers, and they actually had Kawani Lapsaritis do a dowsing session up here on a map, and coincidentally, that just happened to be where a couple of Sasquatch sightings had happened in the area. So there could be something to do with it. I'm not sure. I'm not very sure, but it could be something that goes around. I really don't know.
Well, another thing that, maybe more advanced researchers would use are ley lines. And ley lines and dowsing kind of goes together, the electromagnetic forces and all that stuff. But I heard a guy one time at a conference say he used an EMF detector, electromagnetic detector, on his Bigfoot hunts. And I asked him why. And he said, well, everything gives off an electromagnetic reading. You, me, my computer, telephone, everything of some sort. So he said when he goes out, he has one with him and he checks things. And I said, no, I never gave that a thought, because it's always been related to UFOs and the paranormal where EMF detectors are used. But I never gave it a thought of using it for any research into bipedals or Sasquatch. But I do carry one. I have several in the truck, but I do carry one when I'm in the field now, just in case.
I mean, you can never be too prepared on anything, but it is something that, I think you have to look for those instances where it could be used. And,
sure.
And if it doesn't work, you're not going to know if you don't try. And anything is possible in this field, let's be honest.
Oh, yeah. Anything. some of the stuff that we've come up with to try with the bipedals. Some of those things harken back from ufology, where ufologists would put blinking lights, strobe lights out in the field to see if it attracted anything in the sky. And it did, on many occasions. And they turned the lights off, and whatever's in the sky went away. And so we thought, well, if it works for that, why wouldn't it work for something in the woods? It's just like if there was a strobing light out in your backyard, all of a sudden, wouldn't you go out to see what it was?
We've had that happen here recently in this area.
So I'm thinking if I put out enough of these, and I got small portable strobe lights, if I put out these strobe lights and not have them on all the time, just intermittently, maybe every 15, 30 minutes, something like that, an hour, in different locations, would it draw anything out into my, infrared or my thermal imaging devices? And that would be ideal.
We only got about 5 minutes here before we got to go to break. And I figure we'll end this segment on Sasquatch before getting into the bipedals in hour number 3. Butch, it was the 50th anniversary just a couple weeks ago of the legendary Patterson-Gimlin Sasquatch film at Bluff Creek. There's still a lot of debate to this day whether or not that film is real or fake.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about that? 50 years of debate over a Sasquatch film.
Ain't that crazy? Look, I've looked at that film so many times I can probably draw it by mind on a piece of paper, frame for frame. It is what it is. I mean, that film has been taken apart by professionals for eons, and they've come up with the same thing. It is what it is. Now, what it is, nobody's willing to say that, but whatever's there is there, and it is a female, period. The guy with the suit deal and his spiel, that was just a waste of time, another publicity stunt. But I think it's a good film.
What leads you to believe that is a real film?
The fact that it, real professionals that work on film, including some in the ufology field, looked at that film, frame by frame. They tried to take it apart. They tried to document. They matched it up against other bipedal apes, and I mean everything that. If it was somebody, a man in a suit, there were certain things that should have shown up in that film that didn't. And the muscle movement, there were just so many things to that film that there's no way. Even the top guy in Hollywood at the time, I forget his name, but anyway, he was the top guy that did all these suits for the monster movies and stuff like that. He said, I couldn't make a suit to do that. He said, it's impossible. And the size, the when they did the dimensions and the size, and they did it, they matched the trees, they matched the ground, they do this, they do that. There's nothing there that changes it. It's just like the one guy said when he said, I'm done with this. He said, it is what it is, and that's it. He said, I can't say it's not. He said, it just is whatever it is, it is. And he said, that's where I leave it. And this guy worked for the Navy, and that was his job. And he's well thought of in the ufology community. He's not afraid to call a spade a spade. And he said, hey, it is what it is. And I think it kind of burned me a little bit about this last conference. Now, there's the 50th anniversary, right? And you got Gimlin there. He's there. And he's not even asked to come up and say a few words. They kind of blew him off.
I heard about that. What an insult to that.
That sucks. That really sucks. I was saying to one of my guys, I said, well, when we go out there, we haven't been out there yet. He was, I wasn't. I wanted to go out next year maybe. And I said, after that, I wouldn't give them a dime. To just do that, to just diss him like that, that was uncalled for. And they just said, well, they didn't have time. Look, if it wasn't for him, you wouldn't be there, right? So you can't give this guy 5 minutes to just go up and say hello and thank you and all this kind of stuff like he usually does. They just blew him off.
It was very insulting. I want to spend a little bit more time on this coming out of the break before we get into bipedals, but we are going to hop out for our final break of the night here on Spaced Out Radio. Butch Witkowski is our guest from UFOcomp.com. Butch is here the final Monday of every month. His next appearance will be Monday, November 27th. Also, reminder, after this show, in just over an hour's time, I will be interviewed on KMOX Radio in St. Louis, the CBS affiliate, talking cryptids, talking aliens, talking conspiracy. So I hope you tune on in over there. KMOX.com is the website. We'll be back right after this on Spaced Out Radio.
We're getting strange on Saturday nights. Hi there, this is Dave Cruz, and each Saturday, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, I will take you on a tour of the weird and obtuse on Spaced Out Saturdays, from aliens to Sasquatch and every tinfoil hat in between. We got you covered. Join us at spacedoutradio.com for Spaced Out Saturdays. See you there.
Not ready for bed on Saturday night? Right after Spaced Out Saturdays, hop on over to S4 with Corey Ruiz and me, Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal. With S4, there are no limits to what we try and uncover. From government conspiracies to helping clean up the paranormal, no topic is safe on S4. We get to the heart of the matter, of the subjects you want to learn more about. So tune in on S4 starting at midnight Pacific, 3 a.m. Eastern, only on SpacedOutRadio.com.
Have you had an experience you can't explain? Would you like someone you can trust to look into it? We have just the place. The SOR Sightlines Report is the place for you to find answers. Whether it's Bigfoot, UFOs, Dogman, ghosts, aliens, or anything strange, the Sightlines Report will get you connected with one of our expert researchers to find out what's going on. All of your personal information is kept 100% confidential. The SOR Sightlines Report, a place for you to find the answers you need. Only at spacedoutradio.com.
Hi there. I'm Butch Witkowski, lead investigator with UFO Cop. On the final Monday of every month, you can listen to me and host Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio's Strange Days. We're going to get to the heart of the matter when it comes to what's happening out there. People are seeing and experiencing things from ET contact to Bigfoot, and I want to hear about it. Your experiences are what we investigators need to help solve these unknown mysteries. So tune in at spacedoutradio.com to the final Monday of every month from Butch Witkowski's Strange Days.
This is Eric Markham, news editor for the Spaced Out Radio's The Encounter Online. We have put together a great team of writers and journalists from all over the world to bring you top-quality paranormal stories, from alien encounters to the latest conspiracies. You won't find any of that fake news here. True stories and top-notch reporting as we look to bring these experiences to the mainstream. The Encounter Online, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Do you want to know the truth? Do UFOs exist? Are aliens real? Are the governments hiding the biggest secret in history? We're UFO seekers, and we're on a hunt for the truth. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow along with us as we journey across the United States, visiting UFO hotspots and alien hotspots, trying to document the UFO phenomenon. Catch us on Spaced Out Radio every third Monday of the month as we discuss Area 51, UFOs, and more. And also, don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube.
Patrolling the Pacific Northwest, we are always on the lookout for the strange and unassuming stories that real people are experiencing. Hi, I'm Vincent Zunza from Pacific North Weird. Me and Alexandra Sullivan have teamed to bring to you those odd stories that never seem to make it into the mainstream. Stories so weird that will leave you scratching your head wondering, is this real? It's as real as it gets with Pacific North Weird. You can watch our videos right here at spacedoutradio.com.
Become more intimate and interactive with Spaced Out Radio. Join our Space Travelers Club with your new membership. For $5 a month, we'll provide you with special access to the website, monthly prize draws from books to psychic readings, along with monthly newsletter, private interviews, and more. Sign up today to be part of Spaced Out Radio's experience.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. Spacedoutradio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
Don't have time to listen to Spaced Out Radio live? Wherever you are, the car, the office, the shower, or even if you're traveling, we're right here for you. Each Spaced Out Radio show can be found on iTunes, TuneIn, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. It's the perfect way for you to catch up on our shows. For more information, just head over to our website, spacedoutradio.com, and tune in to us today.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
Strange creatures lurking in the night, the sounds of wood knocking in the forest, odd happenings right out of a fictional world. These are the reports I love. Hi there, this is author Ronald Murphy, and I would love it if you join me and Spaced Out Radio host Dave Scott the second Wednesday of every month on our journey into the unknown land of cryptozoology at spacedoutradio.com. From Mothman to Frogman and everything in between. Hey, they don't call me the crypto guru for nothing.
It's Cosmic Sundays with me, Elizabeth Anglin, in Cosmic Passport. Let me take you down a 3-hour spiritual journey where we will get into everything from ET contact to Psychic Sundays. It's a journey of listening and learning together with some of the best professionals in their fields. You can tune in to Cosmic Passport at spacedoutradio.com every Sunday, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and hashtag Spaced Out Radio, and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back to the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Great to have you with us. A reminder to all our listeners out there, if you want to hear me interviewed live, I'll be going on KMOX Radio out of St. Louis, 11:20 a.m. Right after this show. We're going to be talking conspiracies, aliens. It's going to be a lot of fun. I hope you can stick around and join us. I'm looking forward to it. I didn't expect to have a late night tonight, but sometimes it goes that way, and I'm going on the air to be interviewed. Kind of weird. Especially so quickly after a show. That's never happened, but we're going to do it. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I hope you guys can tune on in. Tomorrow night on the program, we get all Halloween-y, as we are going to be doing a live Ouija board session. Karen Dahlman will be our guest running the spirit board, and we're going to take your questions in the chat room. So you got to be in a chat room. Make sure you got your pen and paper ready, because we are going to translate those messages that come across from a live Ouija board session starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern time at spacedoutradio.com. We want to welcome in everyone listening in on WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia, home of The Walking Dead. We are live as well on the United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans, at over 160 countries around the world. We are also live on KTLK, The Fringe FM, Renegade Talk Radio out of Las Vegas, and if you listening in on Revolution Radio, remember the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to freedomslips.com and donate today. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Calipigian is your password. Make sure you use it wisely, Space Travelers, as Bill sets a password each and every night right here on the mighty SOR. Now, if you want to follow us on social media, you can do so on Twitter, at Spaced Out Radio. Use the hashtag Spaced Out Radio if you want to connect live with me during the show as well. You can give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. We are also live on the SOR Space Travelers group on Facebook if you want to join us for live chat as well. You could also give our Instagram page a follow, Dave Scott SOR. We are on iHeartRadio in the United States, TalkStream Live. Tune us in on TuneIn, download and subscribe to our shows on iTunes. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including joining the SOR Space Travelers Club for $5 a month. Shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. Rock out to some Bumblefoot. You can also watch UFO Seekers or Contact TV videos and read up on the Encounter Online. Our news section is getting better every day, so I hope you check that up as well. And my latest blog is up there as of today. It is on Tom DeLonge and called The DeLonge Effect. Tonight on Spaced Out Radio, Butch Witkowski is with us. Butch from UFO Cop, UFOcop.com is the website, joins us the final Monday of every month in a segment we call Strange Days. Butch, welcome back.
Yes, and they're getting stranger.
Yes, they are. They really are. I want to stick with the Patterson-Gimlin film here for a few more minutes, if you don't mind. Sure. Now, next to the Zapruder film of the JFK assassination, this has been one of those videos, probably the second most disseminated video or movie, whatever you want to call it, in North American history.
Yep.
Do you think it's because of the topic that it is, or just that people want to debunk it or play all sorts of story time? Why do you think this movie will continue to be broken down left, right, center?
Well, it's just like in most of ufology and cryptozoology and the paranormal. You got 50% that believe and you got 50% that say no. So it's that them against us thing. I think the last go-around with the film, which was 6 years ago, I believe, 7 years ago, where somebody in Hollywood that does a lot of the CGI stuff looked at it, and he pretty much came up with the same thing. He said, look, it is what it is. You can't, you know, CGI didn't exist back when that film was taken. That was film. And he said if it would have been doctored or messed around with, he said there would be different things that happen in each frame of the film. And he said, and also in the creature itself, in its movements, they don't change frame to frame. In other words, like there's no skip frames or what he called retakes, where maybe something didn't quite look right, so they did it over and then they patched it together, and they stitched it together. He said he can't find any of that. So another one that just came up with basically it is what it is. But I think, look, you're always going to have debunkers, skeptics, and being a skeptic is healthy. I mean, I'm a skeptical believer. I need to see the proof. I've heard the stories. Just give me the proof. Show me the evidence. But I think that film is just like the Zapruder film. I mean, look how many times people have said that's a fake. But had he not taken it, a very important piece of history would have been missing. Same thing I feel with the Gimlin film. You know, if it hadn't been taken, a very piece of maybe important history would be missing.
With all the breakdown of this, there's the side of people who say this is absolutely fake. There's the side that say this is absolutely real. You and I tend to agree that it is a real female Sasquatch.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of people who say that it was the suit that was tucked down, creating a breast-like image, and that, you know, or it was stuffing put in there trying to make the creature look bigger that moved. Do you considering I guess where I'm going with this is because there is so much scrutiny over this film, and along with today with so much CGI, Photoshop, film editing, so on and so forth. Do you think that's really the last true video we will ever get of Sasquatch?
Yep. I agree wholeheartedly. You know, when we go out, we have all these fancy cameras. Digital, infrared, thermal, video. But you know what's always in my pack? And there's one close, I mean really close to grab if you need it, a film camera and a film video camera. They're always there. So if I've got something on digital, the first thing people are going to go is, oh, you faked it, it's CGI. But I'm going to have the same thing on a film camera at the same shot. No problem. And, you know, you didn't hear this kind of talk about photographs not being what they supposedly are when there was film cameras. You look at some of the old pictures of UFOs from the 60s, 50s, 40s. Nobody debunked those. There was no CGI back then. There was no Photoshop back then. I mean, there were film cameras. 110s, 35 millimeters, medium format cameras, Polaroids. You mess with those, and it's so obvious, it's ridiculous. I mean, a kid could look at it and say, well, why is that photographed like that? Why doesn't it match the negative? With the digital, you can pretty much take a digital and make whatever you want to make.
So why do you expect, though, that that's the real last footage? Because I realize it's a simple answer if you want to make it that, because of YouTube, because of the CGI, all sorts of facets. You know, people creating their own suits, trying to make things look as real as they possibly can. I get that. But do you think that the smoking gun film, maybe a new one, could be out there?
Oh, it could be. It could be. You know, things, the technology has moved so much and so fast that, you know, it's just still where, although CGI in whatever form it's used can pretty much do anything, that CGI that was used can also be reversed. So when you use or you use CGI to enhance something, and you say it wasn't enhanced, anybody that's, you know, up to snuff on their CGI can show you where you did it and how you did it. I've done that with Photoshop already on UFO pictures, where I took the same picture and took it back to what it was, which was an airplane turned upside down and blacked out. So you had the 3 collision lights, which were turned all white, and they're claiming it was a triangle. And when I layered it and took the colors out one at a time, I actually saw the landing gear of a Cessna 172 and partial tail number. So when I sent that back to him, I never heard anything again.
Do you think then that, well, let me ask you it this way. If you had that smoking gun video, knowing the criticism and the critiquing and the debunking that goes on with social media now, and how cruel people can be behind a profile, would you release the film if you had the smoking gun film? If not, why not? If so, who would you release it to?
I would probably release it, but it would have to be, maybe one of the research institutions or a top researcher in the field. I wouldn't like turn it over to the paper or post it on YouTube or anything like that.
Mm-hmm. So at what point would you say that it is a good idea to hold on to that? Like, who do you trust? How do you go around, Butch, if somebody came to you and said, look, I've got a real video here, I don't really want it reversed or sent out to the public, what would you tell them? How would you break that down? Because I think this is a legitimate concern right now for a lot of people, is they don't want the headache of the social media.
Right. Well, there are institutions out there and researchers that have done their work, know who they are, that are forthright, honest, will take what you give them and let you know exactly what you have and what should be done. And if you have something that's that good, of course, first thing you're going to do is copyright it. That's, you're going to put every copyright on in the world on top of that. And then take it to one of the institutions, whether it's here or out of the country, and let them go over it and verify everything. And, of course, you'd like to have a little evidence with that, right? Prints or other photographs or eyewitness testimony or anything. But, look, the best thing out there that's going to work, period. There's no film, no photographs or anything. The only thing that will work, that will prove without a doubt that this visitor exists, is a body. Unfortunately.
Question from BTO in the chat room. Do you believe there are varying species of Sasquatch, and can there be both naturally earthly-based ones as well as otherworldly ones?
Well, I guess you could say there's different species because you have Sasquatch here, and then you have Yeti. They're two different, and then, you go to Malaysia, they have another one that, the name escapes me right at the moment, but there are, I believe there are different species. As far as, I don't know. I gotta think about that one.
I just don't know if there was an opportunity to say that Sasquatch is from another planet or an earthly-based creature. I don't think there's enough evidence to really draw in between whether it's one or the other or potentially both. I really don't think there's enough evidence to do that. And I think that, the possibility is there. However, I do believe that there are some earthly mysticisms that are created here, maybe from here. You can, blame God or the gods or whomever it is, but I don't think that it is otherworldly. Yet there are a lot of people who believe, and one of the theories, as far out as this sounds, that I have heard, was that Sasquatch was brought here because their planet exploded And so they dropped a bunch of Sasquatch off on each planet that these aliens went by. I mean, as silly as that sounds, I believe their planet was Maldek or something along those lines. You know, so there are some far-out theories, Butch, as to what could be the realm of possibility of what this creature is. Could it be just a godly creature that has supernatural gifts like so many others that we've seen in the past, whether it's like the Minotaur or anything along those lines?
Yeah, or it just could be something that was here for a very, very long time and has survived and learned to survive and has learned to stay hidden and has learned to stay in an area where most people really don't go. I mean, yeah, you know, you have a lot of folks that are up in, get up hunting in certain times of the year. But, you know, there's not a hunter for every 6,100 acres or every acre in a 6,100 or 6,800 square mile park. You know, they're usually limited to a certain area, so if these creatures are as intelligent as they seem, they would just, move out of there until the hunters are done with their thing and then move back in. Could they be self-sustainable? From the looks of them, yeah. I just am not ready to write them off as being something other than a creature, individual, whatever, that has been here for a long time. And more reports are describing the facial features. You know, the first describing of the facial features were ape-like, and they look like a gorilla and all that. But in the last few years, a lot of these reports are describing the face as human-like. There's a nose, there's lips, there's eyelids, there's eyebrows. So, could it be something that we should think is extinct but isn't? Possible. The only thing that's going to solve this, like I said, is going to be a body. That's it. We're going to have to find a body. And, and then from there, it's going to be, extraction of DNA and a whole lot of other stuff. But, I mean, it wasn't just too awful long ago when folks couldn't find them. They couldn't even find anything that they came up with the interdimensional travel thing or the other planet thing or this thing. I mean, every excuse in the book was thrown forward. The connection to UFOs, that they were actually seen piloting UFOs. Well, where in the hell did you see one that close that you saw the pilot? And you're describing a UFO with a Sasquatch actually piloting the craft. It gets to the point where it gets beyond ridiculous, and I just think staying the course, looking for what we're looking for, being respectful out there, and see that what evidence we get, we get. If we are fortunate enough to find a body, and I don't mean killing one, I mean finding a body, or what's left of one, that's just going to be the way it ends.
Let's move on here to the subject of bipedal canines, which you're very well known for. Have there been any recent sightings of late that you have had reports on?
Yep. Got one. Got it right in front of me here. Got one that was submitted 14 days ago. And of all places, rural Mississippi. Avid hunter, out in the woods with his bow. It was still pretty dark when he got out in the morning. And did a little relaxing in his stand before he thought, he felt like going out and stalking. And his words, It's not too far away from daylight, so the birds and other wildlife are starting to make their morning calls. Usually pretty peaceful, right? I swear to God, in the span of a second, everything in that patch of woods shut up at the same time, the exact same time. Total dead silence. It didn't even try to be subtle. It just was gone. And that alone scared the crap out of me. So he goes on to say that he kind of freezes, listening for anything he can, and then he hears something that's out there with him. So that freaked him out even more. Then he says, could be just a bear, could be just a bobcat. But he said, I don't know why, but I was still terrified. I figured I could hear a bear coming, but I knew big cats were renowned for stalking people without their knowing, which also scared the daylights out of me. I decided to keep moving towards my stand, post up, just point my arrow down the tree. After what seemed like forever, I made it in the stand, pulled out my knife just in case, and just listened. Still no sound. Now dawn was breaking. There were no sounds of wildlife. It was just keep getting more and more eerie. My stand is perched on the side of a creek. The creek was not very deep, like maybe the top of your ankles, and the only sound I could hear was a slight noise of water running. Then I hear something to my right. It's running fast. I instantly raise my bow and wait. It's getting louder and louder and closer. I almost screamed when I saw it. It literally looked like something out of Dog Soldiers movie, only more muscular. This thing busted through the brush, ran down the slope, through the creek, then disappeared on the other side. I've seen things in my life, but nothing like this. And it was huge. 7'5", 8'5", 250 pounds. And he goes on to describe wolf-like appearance, bipedal, massive in weight and height, in muscular outlook. And he said, my hunting days are done. He said, I don't know what it was. I've never seen anything like that. But I'm pretty damn sure that I just saw a werewolf.
Have they been sighted in that area before?
Yes. They have. Mostly in around New Orleans, down by the old railroad tracks and the old swamp areas. There have been stories over the years of upright canine wolf-like creatures, but not very often. There's basically probably a handful of reports over a period of 10 years. So this was not strange. I mean, it matches descriptions of other reports in that area. So he saw what he saw.
I always am concerned about things like werewolves at this type of year when reports are made, because it is Halloween. Werewolves do play into the Halloween tradition. How do we know what is real and what is just fallacy?
If the report would have came from somebody that lived in town, not near the woods or swamps or anything like that, I would probably look at that twice and look for red flags. But when you get somebody that lives away from town, they live out in the boonies. They're usually a hunter, and they show real fear. It makes more sense that it will be somebody that is familiar with the sounds of the woods. And when he said that everything went quiet all of a sudden, I've experienced that. My team has experienced that. When we went on our very first expedition, and I've said this before, I'm in 6,800 acres on top of a mountain where there's the largest deer herd in Pennsylvania, got coy wolves, bear and everything else that walks or crawls. And it's a full moon weekend, hunter's moon, and we don't hear anything. It's dead silent. Not a sound, not a bird. We don't see a bird. We don't hear anything on the ground. There's no walking around, no deer, nothing. A full moon, we don't hear any coyotes. We don't hear any coy wolves howling. And when I came home from that weekend, I got home on a Sunday morning very early, like 3 a.m., and I live in a farm area, and I was unloading some stuff out of the truck. And I'm listening to the coyotes in the field howling behind me, behind the house. I was just in coyote heaven. And I didn't hear a thing. We didn't see a thing. We didn't see anything on thermal imaging. Nothing. Our recorders recorded no sounds whatsoever. So when he said that everything just fell quiet that quick, I already experienced that. So the only time a forest gets quick is when there's a massive predator in sight. If there's a predator, everybody goes still. Now, he only had it for his time, before he got out of that stand and went back. I was like that for a whole weekend, 3 days. Nothing. Zero. Not a sound. Not a bird chirp. Daylight or night. Nothing. Nothing rustling through the woods. No bear. And when the park ranger came up to check on us, I says, is it usually this quiet? He says, no, he says it's not. He says, it's really quiet, isn't it? And I said, yeah, quiet. Been quiet. Quiet yesterday, quiet today. Probably be quiet tomorrow. He says, it's weird.
A couple questions for you, Butch. Mike is asking in the SOR Space Travelers Club on Facebook, Butch, what is your best, most recent case that you can discuss?
On bipedals, or?
I would assume in general, or bipedals, one of the two.
Okay. Best case right now is a ufology case that started last December. And we have been to the site many times, and I've discussed this before on the show. We found distortions that can only be seen through our FLIR cameras. And they've moved from the original location to another location on the property, but they're still being able to be seen. And there's still two of them, no more than two. Still look the same, still temperature the same. And that's pretty much about the best one as far as we have no idea, but they're still there. And usually, you see something and then you never get a chance to see it again. And here's something where I could go out in my truck right now and leave and go down there and pull out one of the FLIR cameras and view those objects. Now, they do move. They move from one area to another, but they've never left that small section of that property. It's a very large property, but they stay within that 1 acre of where there's a new building going up and where there was a lot of ground removed to put that building. So my best guess is that these are from the past, way past, and they are watchers, and something took place on that property many years ago, and they are guarding that property because there's a large, like I said, there's a large dirt mound, and some of that dirt mound has been taken away and put out into the field, into a cornfield, where the building was actually just put up, and, to level it off in some spots where it's low. And one of those distortions is now out in that patch of field. The other one is still at the main mound. Now, I don't know if that's UFO related. I doubt it. Is it more paranormal or ancient prophecy? Don't know. But that was all Indian burial ground. It was all Indian territory. That valley had the largest group of Susquehanna Indians in the state. So right now, all I can say is it is what it is. They're there. They can be seen on FLIR. Nothing hides from FLIR. So what they are, I couldn't tell you. What I think they are is I just think they're ancient. I think they've been there for a very, very long time, and I think they're guarding something, or they're caretakers, or they're watchers.
Follow-up question from Mike in regards to this. What did they look like, and were they in the air or on the ground?
The first time that I saw them, they were on a roof of a new constructed chicken barn. The chicken barn is about 25 feet wide, and it's about 250 feet long. It's a place where they're going to raise embryos and then bring them into chicks, and then they sell the chicks, of course, to farmers. One was on the far end of the roof, seen through FLIR, and the other one was not on the ground, but off the ground, about 3 foot, but in front of a door in the side of that building. Now, the building is not complete. They're still working on it inside. There's a lot of equipment got to be put in, a lot of floors and stuff got to be, cemented and all that stuff. And I think when they dug up that ground, they disturbed something in that specific location, because there was never any problems out there when it was just a cornfield. And then after this building went up, then strange things started happening around the farm, like things would be seen in the sky, orbs, which I also seen firsthand, photographed. Lights across the way that just turned on and off, and there's no lights across the way. It's just another field that goes into the woods, and there's nothing in the woods. Been there and done that. Had Lon Strickler and his son come up, and we all viewed the same thing through FLIR devices, and also by eye. Reports of chanting is heard sometimes, drums of some type. And I just feel that when they dug this property, they got into something that was probably sacred back then. And I'm by no means an expert in any of that, so everything I rely on has to come from the indigenous and, people that do that. We had clairvoyants do a I can never remember the name of that, how they do it, but anyway, it's where you get a group of people and you give them very little information and you let them zero in on an area, and then they get back to you. Government used it for years. Why? I can't think of that name off the top of my head. I'm giving myself a headache here. But they did that, 3 people in different parts of the world. I have no idea where this location was other than the information we gave them, which was very little. And they came back with pretty much drawings of what the place looks like from the air. And there's a pond there, and strange things have been happening at the pond. I haven't seen anything with the FLIR at the pond, although music has been recorded at the pond. And when I say music, it's more chanting than it is music. And they definitely have a temperature to them. They are on the outside edge. They are just a little bit over whatever the normal temperature is that you're standing in. But their center mass, when you hit them on center mass, it is 25 degrees. That 25 degrees has been there when it's been 89, 90 degrees out, and when it's been in the 30s. That temperature stays the same at 25 degrees on both. So what I'm dealing with is something that I don't know and don't understand, but they kind of look like, my best description is if you're going down a hot highway and you kind of see how it gets wavy in front of you, the heat coming off the highway, if you would condense that into something maybe 3 foot tall and 2 foot wide, that's what I'm looking at. And in the FLIR, it shows the outer edge of that mass to be warmer than the center mass. which is always in the 25-degree range. But I just think when these guys dug up that area, they disturbed something. And then, when another thing was when I do an EMF reading, if I do the whole barn, inside, outside, all around it, it pretty much doesn't get anything. But when I do that dirt mound, all I got to do is get within 10 feet of it. It pins the needle every time. So,
oh, wow.
Yes, remote viewing. Thank you, ma'am. But the remote viewing was really phenomenal because, like I said, they get very little information. They don't get a location. They get very little information. And they actually were telling us what was going on in certain terms and what the place looked like pretty much verbatim. And then the other thing that is very strange about the place was we had a very bad windstorm come through here back in March, on the 25th of March. And it pretty much destroyed everything in that valley. I mean, it tore roofs, knocked over buildings, upset tractor trailers loaded with grain. The cement silos got knocked over. Chicken barns got destroyed. Cattle barns got destroyed. Houses lost their roofs. And this property had no damage whatsoever. Matter of fact, the very same pile of leaves that I walked through a year prior in the snow was still there. They didn't even lose a shingle. This home was built in 1868. Everything around it was destroyed. The house, that whole property was spared. His next door neighbor lost 50 old growth trees, pulled right out of the ground. Neighbor on the other side lost a roof, had his car upset. Guy behind him lost a barn. Across the street, tractor trailers upset, barns knocked over, silos knocked down. I just think it's one of those things that I'll probably never figure out. But it's kind of weird. And those distortions are still there. They've moved, but they're still there. Now, will they ever go away? I don't know.
Let's get to Kevin's question here. He is saying, Butch, have you heard any reports regarding this creature in Wyoming? As in the bipedal.
There have been reports of bipedals in Wyoming, Montana, Utah, pretty much the Four Corners for years. Descriptions vary. Some say wolf-like. Some say squatch-like. Some say kind of half man, half dog, half wolf. There's those have been out there for a long time. There's a lot of reports in that Four Corners area of the country.
Do you think we are dealing with the same breeding creature in all of these areas, or do you think there is subtle differences in the species?
I think there's subtle differences because when you look at the Dogman reports, the Dogman reports usually have them at 4 to 6 foot tall, multicolored fluffy fur, tails, floppy ears, glowing red eyes. They're seen on all fours almost all the time. They're found rooting through garbage and stuff like that. They're found walking around parking lots, schoolyards, at night. They're seen everywhere. A lot of railroad tracks and stuff like that. Where the bipedals that we're dealing with, every report has been exactly the same in description. 8 to 10 foot tall, very large wolf-like head, short pointed ears, short brown or black fur, muscular arms, hands with claws, where dogmen are reported with paws, muscular legs, hawk legs like a dog from the knee down. They're always seen upright. They're never seen on all fours. And glowing yellow eyes, always glowing yellow eyes. And in one case, an aura was seen around one, kind of a silverish aura. But the guy said it could have been from his high beams on his car hitting the fur just right. but we just wrote it up as an aura. And our not one of the descriptions that we have varies from that. I mean, there's no difference. I mean, they're all exactly the same.
What are people feeling when they are having this? Are they feeling fear? Are they feeling some sort of apprehension? Or is it something like with Bigfoot, where the energy, I'm not going to say it's positive, but you could feel that there isn't really a fear around it if you're respecting the area of the creature?
Every person, with the exception of one report we have that has encountered this thing, has felt extreme fear, time to get out of Dodge. This is not where I want to be. And even those that were carrying weapons, the same thing. The last report with a gentleman who's a ranger here in the state, and who was armed. He had a sidearm, and his buddy went to check out a new walking trail that they were putting in on one of the state game lands, and it wasn't completed. They'd just gone down the nose around. And the whole time they're walking down through, there's something trailing them on the right-hand side, which he kind of thought was a deer off the top of his head. And as they went on, it was there. They'd stop, it would stop. They'd start walking, So he kind of figured it was either a deer or a bear. So they get to the end where the construction is still going on. They couldn't walk any further, so they turn around and go back. Now it's on the other side. And it's doing what they're doing. They're walking, it's walking, they stop, it stops. And now he's thinking, oh, wait a minute, something's not right here. So they get about halfway back to the vehicle, a little parking area that's there, and he stops. They turn around, and he said, why I turned around, I have no idea. I just know I had to turn around. I turned around, and there it stood right in the middle of the path. And he described exactly what everybody else did. He said, in a blink of an eye, he said it wasn't there anymore. He said, so we got back to the vehicle, and as they were walking down a little incline to get to the flat part where the truck was parked, he looked up on the tree line, and there it was staring at him from the tree line. And he said, I've been in this business for 25 years. He said, I know what I saw. He said, I don't know what it is, but I know what I saw.
This leads to BTO's question. Do you feel that lots of these cryptids are part of some sort of hybridization program?
They could be, and the only reason I'm going to say that, not that I have any proof, but there was a report a few years ago, I'm just going to say 2014, 2013, where a group of Bigfoot researchers were out and about in that particular area, not exactly the area, but close enough. When I say close enough, within 25 miles. And they were going about their business, doing what they do, and they're walking down this trail, and out of the bushes steps a gentleman wearing full combat gear, night vision goggles, carrying an M4 rifle, fully automatic, in full camo, all recent equipment, not something you bought at the Army and Navy store. This guy was the real deal. Radio plugged into his ear, the whole bit, and he was surprised to see them as they were surprised to see him. And they looked at him and said, like, good evening. And he looked at them and said, just out hunting for bear. And he turned around and walked into the woods, and that's it. In that area, there are no military bases of any type anywhere near there. Not within 200 miles in any direction. So what was that all about? Was he maybe looking for something that possibly got away? Yeah, it's possible. The government always tells the truth. But could it be? Yeah, could be.
Scary times indeed when it comes to that, because I think there is a lot of people trying to figure out what is creating these cryptids, whether it's Bigfoot, whether it's Dogman, the werewolf sightings, whatever is happening in Ohio, because Ohio seems to be really screwed up with cryptids. I don't know why. Yeah. And it would make sense if it was some sort of Montauk type project, or maybe even Wright Pat type project. You know what I'm saying? Because the two strangest places where everything seems to come out of is either Montauk or close to Wright-Patterson.
Mm-hmm. Well, but then, the only thing that goes against that thought is that, I have found reports in newspapers in the mid to late 1800s that are describing the exact same creature. So, how do you explain that?
But this is what I'm saying is, have these creatures been around, which we know of through Indian legend or indigenous legend, for millennia. We know that. But if the government does know about them, do you think there has been some sort of tampering that's been maybe going on with this?
Oh yeah, possibly to weaponize them. Oh, absolutely. I think if the government could weaponize a groundhog, they'd do it. But yeah, I mean, it's the cases are interesting. They're phenomenal when you're reading them in depth and scope and description and what took place and people say, what's the difference between that and a werewolf? Well, a werewolf usually has clothes on because it changes. It's a shapeshifter. A werewolf is a shapeshifter that goes from being a man or whatever, a lady, to a wolf. But the clothing stays. Clothing doesn't go. And a lot of the werewolf stuff was actually, started back in the 15th, 16th century to cover up crimes of the churches back then, Protestant and Catholic churches. But the stuff that's being seen today is just not right. It's just something's, and I guess the part that bothers me the most about all the investigation so far is we have no reports, none outside of that loop. None, not one, where this thing is like out of the loop by 50 miles, or it's down in another county in southeast, or it's down up in the northwest further. No, they stay right in that part of Pennsylvania, which also happens to be our deepest, darkest, largest forests. I mean, you can't see your hand in front of your face when you're walking at night. So, I mean, if you were going to hide something or yourself, that'd be the place to go. Nobody'd ever find you. Plenty of water, plenty of game, plenty of places to hide, lots of caves, lots of old buildings that are abandoned. I mean, you could, live there easily. So why wouldn't any creature who could sustain themselves with, the necessities be there?
Well, we will soon see, my friend. We will soon see, because I don't know much like the whole alien story. I really don't know if this is something that we are ever going to solve. I'm just not sure of it. Do you think that these cryptids that you were going after with UFO Cop would be something that there is plausible solutions coming? Or do you think it's much going to be like the UFO side, which I know you follow as well, where if people are hoping for some sort of disclosure, they probably have a better chance at winning the lottery?
Right. Well, the thing with the bipedals, where we started out from the very beginning, was to, first of all, prove it exists. I mean, we can prove stuff in the sky. That's been going on for years and years and years. I've seen mine. I've seen 16 so far. I've never been alone when I saw them. Photographed them, viewed them, the whole nine yards. With the bipedal, the only thing I have on my side is technology. That's it. There's nothing else. I can't go out walking around looking for this thing in 6,800 acres of woods. And the only other thing that it has, and the only thing it has on its side is stealth. So The game breaker will be if this thing walks in front of one of those FLIR cameras, or one of our FLIR camera traps goes off and gets it. And then it's only going to be a FLIR picture, but it will show that there is something out there that is 8 to 10 foot tall, muscular, looking like a wolf. And what really drives me is I want to know what that temperature is of that creature. You know, now if the temperature reading comes up 0, then what am I looking at? An apparition? If it comes up to 98.1, what am I looking at? Something that's pretty much human? There's just so many little questions that have to be answered. You know, when these things first came out, was there any environmental changes, you know, in those times, and going back into the 1800s that might have brought these things forward? Right now we're looking at missing persons in those areas. You know, look, if there is something out there and you got a lot of missing people in a certain area, and these things are in that certain area, are they feeding? And if they are, where's the remains? I mean, you know, we've already done the moon phase thing, checked the dates, burial grounds, all that stuff. And another thing, where these areas are in our research areas, the population is pretty much 0. I mean, you have a county that's huge, population 2,100, and most of them are seasonal. So at any one time, you might have 1,000, 1,100, 1,200 people living in a county, the whole county. So I mean, it's perfect for staying off the map.
My friend, we only got about 35 seconds left with you. I hate to cut you off.
Oh, my God.
I know. It goes way too fast, Butch. Way too fast. You know, do you expect a busy Halloween with the kids coming around tomorrow?
I'm giving out salad.
You are not. Shame on you if you are. Shame on you if you are.
And I'm going to be dressed up as Caitlyn Jenner.
Previous or current?
A fat Caitlyn Jenner.
Oh, there you go. There you go. Butch Witkowski from UFOcop.com. Thank you for being on Spaced Out Radio tonight. Very good to have you again, my friend. We'll talk to you on November 27th, your next appearance.
Okay, buddy.
All right. You take care, my friend. We got little brother is watching, rocking in the background with Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio. He brings us in and out of every single show right here on the mighty SOR. Tomorrow night on the program, for the second year in a row, Karen Dahlman will join us. We are going to be having a live Ouija board session starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time. If you're in the chat rooms, yes, your questions are wanted. Make sure you have a pen and paper to type out the messages that come out for you from Karen's Ouija board. Don't worry, she says we're all going to be protected. We'll have some fun with it tomorrow night. I want to say thank you to my great team for helping me put this together, because as of today, we're starting to look to get this show syndicated. And I know Amy Martin's working very hard on that after what she was working on today. Thank you, Amy, and the rest of the team, Everett Thiemer with the Encounter Online, and the rest of you for putting this show together. But most of all, our biggest thank you is to you, the audience, those who are in their car, sitting at home, maybe in bed, falling asleep, and to those of you participating in the chat rooms and on Twitter tonight. You were all amazing. Thank you so much for sharing this show. Thank you so much for being a part of it, because together, my friends, we own the night. We'll talk to you 21 hours from now. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. KMOX.com if you want to hear me live in a few minutes in St. Louis or on the web. I will be there. Talk to you tomorrow.